Hello and welcome to Band of Bettors, a new betting show for sports fans looking to be more data-driven. You can follow us at Band of Bettors on Twitter as well as at Alloy Sports. I'm Brad Kronthal, excited to be hosting this show with my brother and our CEO, Spencer Kronthal. Spence, how you doing today? It's a great Tuesday.
I'm doing great. We had another awesome week of football. Awesome endings, awesome comebacks. I'm a Ravens fan. We're Ravens fans. So not awesome in the sense that the Bills came back from 17, but love to see it in the sport. And talk about a wicked ending to that London game. 61-yarder double doink for the win or for the loss in that matter.
Yeah, well, might have been exciting sitting in your couch, but I was actually at that game at M&T Bank Stadium, freezing my butt off, drenched from the pouring rain. It was not fun watching the end of that game, but it was a great week of football and excited to get the show going with you as we get to talk about, our favorite thing, which is football, and our company, which is a sports betting research platform that helps sports fans become more data-driven by building their own betting strategy. So we utilize it. We're excited for you all to utilize it as well. So let's get started with our opening act, sharing our favorite moment from the previous week. So I'll get going because there was one guy that really stuck out to me last week is wow, this guy is back. It's Saquon Barkley with the Giants. 31 rushes, 146 rushing yards, but he just looked invincible last week. His speed, his cutting, everything about him looked like the Saquon from a few years ago. This guy, if the Giants were able to, hold on to this divisional strength and the lead that they are looking to accumulate this season, if they're there at the end of the season, Saquon's an MVP type player. There's no doubt about that. Brian Daboll has to be excited from what he's seeing so far of Saquon. And coming in with Daniel Jones's injury, Tyrod Taylor's injury, so much fun watching Saquon out of the Wildcat and just being more creative with him. He was the guy who stuck out to me the most in week 4. Fantasy owners, if you have Saquon Barkley, you are loving life right now.
Oh, absolutely. Just seeing him reverse field again, it's an awesome sight to see. And frankly, coupling that with the 2 naked bootleg touchdowns of Daniel Jones, the Giants' ground game is looking strong. Now, the guy who really stood out to me is a bit of a blast from the past, but having a heck of a season so far. Geno Smith. Back-to-back games with over 320 yards and 2 touchdowns passing, adding in a rushing touchdown this week. Seahawks offense. If you told me the Seahawks would be the ones who put up 48 and Denver with Russell Wilson would be putting up 23 this week, I would have taken that bet any night of the week. But here we are. Geno's playing strong. Couple that with an awesome Rashad Penny outing. And the Seahawks offense is looking as good as it's ever looked in the recent history.
Who would have thought coming into the year that Seattle, Detroit, week 4 would be a shootout like it was the Chiefs and the Rams from just a few years ago?
Oh, absolutely. And yet somehow still, Detroit, you talk about teams who find a way to win. Oh, Detroit, it's getting tough. They're competitive now, obviously. But finding all these different ways to lose a close game.
So one thing that's really cool about coming on here on a Tuesday is that the new lines have been released, and it's really early in the betting week to start thinking about your weekend bets for Sunday, Monday, and Thursday. So I have some lines of interest, and we can see here as I pull it up, betting lines for week 5 stick out to me, and I want to start in Buffalo. Pittsburgh is 14-point underdogs to the Bills. Pittsburgh just named Kenny Pickett as the official starter moving forward. I may have a play in this game as we come to our forecast picks later, but Tuesday is a really great time to come in if you feel strongly about a particular game. I know last week I had a game that I liked on Tuesday, and the lines move when bettors get into the action, sharp bettors, big money bettors. So Tuesday's a great time to come in and see if there are plays that you like before the lines start to move. Pittsburgh and Buffalo is a really massive line here. If you like the Bills, you've got to lay 2 touchdowns at least to win that bet. So, that's one of the games that sticks out to me. Anything on your perspective, Spencer?
Yeah, I think I see 2. I think one is, coming back to Detroit, underdogs on the road against New England. New England's quarterback situation seemingly much worse now that Jared Goff, is looking back somewhat to his former self with the Rams. But the game that really stands out to me, which seems to be a complete toss-up, is another 3-point spread. It's the Chargers at the Browns. Chargers are 3-point favorites. And we've seen the Chargers look like the world beaters that a lot of people expected them to be with Herbert coming into year 3. And we've also seen a Cleveland team that is completely up and down, but seems to be guiding its way to really close games outside of, taking away the Pittsburgh game. So 3 out of 4 have been really close nail biters. Can Cleveland keep this one close? Which Chargers team will show up? Is it the one, that looked extremely strong this past week against Houston, or is it the one that got absolutely torched by the Jaguars the week before? A lot remains unseen. A 3-point spread's not that big of a margin. Could really go either way.
Yeah, and it is tough. I mean, the Browns are not an East Coast team, but for the Chargers to have to travel to the Midwest for a 1 o'clock start, Cleveland's tough at home, and they got that running game going. Nick Chubb has been absolutely fantastic this season. He's second in rushing behind Saquon Barkley. So to travel on the road and face tough teams with a strong running game is just tough to do, especially when you don't have Joey Bosa there in your lineup. I think that's a really interesting spread. One other one I want to bring to, because it's kind of like that regression theory, right? Eagles at Cardinals. Eagles are 5.5-point favorites. The sole remaining undefeated team in the NFL, 5.5-point favorites on the road at Arizona. That's still looking to figure it out. They won again last week against the Panthers, but they just don't seem completely cohesive at the moment. I love the connection between Kyler Murray and Hollywood Brown. The Eagles are not going 17-0. Sorry, Eagles fans. It's just not happening. For them to need 5.5 right now, I can see this line going way down as the week progresses. Road games are tough in the NFL. Regression theory catches up to you. We might talk about this game as well a little bit later on the show. But those are the two matchups early on that kind of catch my eye as to, wow, this is interesting. I definitely think this line is going to move come Friday, Saturday, and then, of course, Sunday. I think for this point, what are some things that you're thinking about on a Tuesday, Spencer? With Alloy, you're able to come on the app. You can see your upcoming games to bet. What are some thoughts that you enter on a Tuesday looking forward to the next week?
Yeah. So, what's great about the app is obviously you can test things extremely quickly. You can get a strategy, run some stats for it, and get everything up and running in about 10 to 20 seconds. So you can really run things pretty quickly. One thing I like to do is, look at the factors that I see in teams that are pretty intriguing. So I'm pretty intrigued by the Lions right now. That offense is absolutely clicking. They're the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL. That rushing game has over 600 yards so far between DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams leading the pack. Really interesting opportunities. So for me this week, I want to run a strategy that's based off them. Obviously, they haven't been winning the games at the end of the day, but for me, a high-scoring offense and a power rushing team, that's a formula for success. Next step, I'm also going to look at teams playing on the road. I know the Lions are coming up on the road this week, so want to see how that factors into winning.
All right. How about you? I look forward to hearing your pick soon. But before we go forward, it's always nice to take a step back. So let's go to our receipts. So these are looking at BetStamp. These are our picks that we tracked from last week. These were mine. So won 3 out of 6 bets total, was 3 out of 5 on Sunday. So, a winning Sunday, but, looking to do better in the weeks to come. I won Kansas City, the Baltimore Buffalo under. So last week, that's a game we saw right away at 52.5 is the total. We're like, okay, it's supposed to be pretty nasty outside. I'm going to look at the under here. And that just kept going down closer to kickoff, but still didn't come close to that line. Ended at 43. Washington, as usual, they disappoint, could not cover the 3.5-point spread. I felt pretty good about that one, but Tennessee seemed like a really strong line to like against the Colts. They win that one outright, obviously covering. Chicago loses, Miami loses. So, pretty even week for me, but looking to capitalize on next week for sure.
The 2 games we doubled down on, was Chicago, and we also both had the Commanders this past week. Both fell flat from that regard. And maybe that's got to be the strategy moving forward. If we're both doubling down on a game, maybe we take the other opinion going forward. But the ones I was able to hit on,
Spencer.
The ones I was able to hit on, Arizona 1.5, it's about time for a Kyler Murray bounce back. We'll see if he can continue. Obviously, still not back to the peak that earned him that massive contract in the offseason, but starting to right the ship over there in Arizona. And then Tennessee, the Derrick Henry train is rolling again. Nice to see them bounce back, not just covering the spread, but getting the win over Indianapolis. And then, like I said, Commanders and the Bears both fell a little bit flat this past week. We'll see if they can bounce things back as we get into week 5. But similar to you, broke about even on the record, a little bit down on the VIG. We'll look to keep improving as we move forward in the season.
And it's still so early. The first couple weeks of the season, using the data, adjusting to this year's teams and the players and the coaching and the style is still new, which is why I feel really great about this week being week 5 and then beyond, because you're able to apply the back-tested results. But now that teams, have a good feel. They are what they are, and they're starting to get stronger for the strengths that they have. And applying the data to your upcoming games is really great. I would say starting this week, once you get a month's worth of data, teams start to figure out their identities, and then we're able to find out, better sample sizes for each team to bet on. So that's what's really exciting about week 5 and beyond. As the season goes on, we just keep getting better and better data, but we've been pretty great so far this year and excited to keep moving forward, which brings us to our main event, our weekly forecast. It's a forecast. We're not going 100%, but we are looking to hit with like our historical results have told us, which is 60+% at some points. Spencer, let's start with you. What's a strategy that you're looking at this week and some games you're looking to play?
Yeah, I'm going to go looking at offense. I'm going to call it the Lions strategy for the week.
This is what you were talking about then.
Exactly.
All right.
A little bit of foreshadowing going on earlier. Like to keep it by the book. So looking at teams with high scoring offenses, power rushing teams that are playing on the road. I like the road factor, help to under account for, things that are under accounted for with the sports books. So for my strategy, I'm looking at close underdogs specifically. Got a 56% win percentage going back to September 2017 with 2 games that are coming up. We got Detroit over New England.
You got 5 years.
Got 5 years of data, 12% ROI. What's our earnings versus what we're putting in, and a nice 56% clip, which over a 5-year sample size, I like this strategy. So you got Detroit covering over New England. It is the Lions strategy. It's only fair that they came up in it. Detroit at +3. And then I'm looking at Cooper Rush to keep things up. Dallas +4.5. Obviously the Rams. Is it the Super Bowl hangover? Is it something else? Something's going on over in LA. They might bounce back, but I'm thinking that Cooper Rush can keep things up and keep this cover. Strategies also popping up heavy underdogs at a lower clip, less games, about a 3% ROI. It's kind of a toss-up if you want some action, but the games that are coming up on that, the Giants over the Pack to cover the spread, +8, Chicago +7, Seattle with Geno +5.5, and finally Atlanta. See if they can keep that division matchup at +8.5. Keep it close with Tampa.
I think we have a lot of similarities in our strategies this week. So mine is my personal ground and pound strategy, a nod to wreck the day with the Jets. I like this strategy. What I input into mine was rushing first downs, rushing touchdowns, and then rushing yards after contact. And I like teams playing in conference games. So that was my filter, was playing teams in conference. And then my results, similar to you, they like a lot of close underdogs this week. And you can see my phone here. It's hitting at 64% of games since 2020. We could even take that back a little further, but 64% win percentage over the last 2+ years. Heavy underdogs is hitting a little bit less, but still pretty strong, hitting at 58%, 23% ROI for those close underdogs. So looking at my games to bet for the upcoming week, it likes Cleveland at home +3. It likes, let's see, for close underdogs, Dallas +4.5. And then, like I said, it likes some of those heavy underdogs as well. So that's where we get into the Giants +8. We get into Pittsburgh +14. I really like that play. Atlanta +8 at Tampa Bay. Now, there could be other circumstances that help Atlanta in this game. I saw a report today that Tom Brady and Giselle have both hired divorce lawyers. So, off the field issues kind of messing with Brady's head. Just let Atlanta cover. Win by a touchdown and call it a day. And then Seattle +5.5, closing out with Chicago +7 at Minnesota. Chicago and Washington are those 2 teams every week. I'm like, okay, this makes sense to bet. And then they just never come through for you. Spencer, you being in Chicago, maybe you can give a word to Matt Eberflus and co. We need them to step it up here when they're underdogs.
Absolutely. I'll see what I can do, but don't count on the results changing based off my input.
Strategies we just built, you can build them yourself. They're on Alloy Sports app. Come check it out. We love to be in the sports betting market, especially the NFL. And we made a tool that's really easy for you to build your own betting strategies. It's fun. And knowing that we have the data to back up our picks is what gives us the confidence to make these bets and make these plays. And we've been profitable, over the last season in the NBA and the NFL. So looking forward to seeing these plays. We'll be tracking them on BetStamp. You can track them with us, and we'll come back to it next week for our next episode. But thanks for tuning in. This is Band of Bettors. Follow us at Band of Bettors on Twitter and at Alloy Sports for all your sports betting needs, trends, and insights. See you next time, guys.